We know of psychics and mediums and intuitives that gift of connecting to the other side. But how do we do that? How do us normal folks connect to the other side and communicate? Well, it is Halloween and the veil is thinned. It's easier to reach out to our loved ones on the other side. Today we have Vince Wilson, one of the leading authorities of spirit communication. He is also a master hypnotist, skilled mentalist, and illusionist. We're going to find out today how to connect to the other side with our guest, Vince Wilson. I'm Tony Sweet, The Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, master hypnotist and mentalist, Vince Wilson. There he is. Is that it's really Vince, or is that just an illusion? I'm just kidding.
Well, you got a great audience there,
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's my guests from the other side. They're applauding you, and if you can see the what's on my face for the people in the YouTube and Facebook and all that, welcome and happy Halloween. But this right here is actually my alien skin being revealed. So if you can see it, Emmy-nominated makeup artist Robert Hensley, who also does a show with Truth Be Told, he did this for me. So thanks, Robert.
Oh, fantastic!
Right?
He's extremely talented.
Oh no, fantastic. You can see it's very detailed. Yeah,
but we all know it's not really makeup. You're actually one of the lizard people that.
That's
rule the
right.
world.
Wait till you see my tongue go all the way. I'm just kidding. Well, welcome to Truth Be Told, and we are excited to have you here because we're only 2 days out from Halloween, and this is kind of wrapping up our Halloween season, and we thought, why not have Vince on? He's one of the leading experts in this field, and I love that on your website it says psychic entertainment. I love that. Well, let's start
out.
Right. Well, let's start to get to know you just a little bit, and then we'll get into where I'm sure the people are like biting at the bits, and they're welcome. Everybody's welcome to ask questions in the chat room, and we'll pull those in around 2025 after. So, Vince, so there's a lot of titles that you have the seance authority, psychic, hypnotist, illusionist, mentalist. So where did you and even a magician? So where did you start building your titles?
Well, I think a lot of it came from the era in which I grew up, which would have been the 70s and 80s. I was born in 74, so I grew up in a time period in which a lot of the television shows were dominated by programs like In Search Of, and
oh my
That's
God, I love
Incredible,
that.
Ripley's Believe It or Not, and movies like the original Superior Poltergeist,
right,
and Ghostbusters, of course, which actually referenced parapsychologists, which inspired me to be involved in or like study these sorts of phenomenon and forms of entertainment in some cases. Being a magician has helped me see through fraud and fakery.
Right.
The parapsychology has helped me understand the theories of what psychic activity might be, what the paranormal might be, including ghosts and hauntings, poltergeist activity, and other strange and weird phenomena. And I study the history and evolution of ideas in which the origins of these concepts came about.
Well, because I when I was growing up, my sister married into a family that were traveling musicians. I mean, not magicians, not musicians. Actually, they were both actually. But and it was interesting to get to know some of the back end of what some of the magicians, how they do it and stuff like that. And it is this quickness of hands and all this stuff. But the psychic part. Do you feel that the one helped the other?
Oh, certainly. The psychic entertainment part is the reference to incorporating some of these concepts in the performances I do. Parapsychology, unfortunately, doesn't bring in paycheck.
Right.
Does not get a lot of funding anymore. Like,
Right.
Even back in the day when it did get some funding, it didn't get quite a lot of it. I am also a hypnotherapist, and that does help pay the bills, for example, as well as the money I make from doing the psychic entertainment. But when I do that, I do incorporate the theories and ideas and actual concepts into those performances, so someone can see my show and have a better understanding. Hey, a fun way of trying to understand poltergeist activity is to watch the classic movie Forbidden Planet, Monsters from the Id. And if you're familiar with that movie, that really kind of drives that home, the idea that you can manifest psychic projections and things like that.
So let me ask you this. I'm here in Los Angeles, and you're working in the paranormal industry and also kind of the entertainment industry too. When you watch movies, and what movies that you see that are very similar to what reality is? Because we know, Hollywood always enhances everything. So we're always thinking some people think that that's true reality. But what do you see some movies you're like, that's pretty close to being on the spot?
Well, like I said, at least in that regard, Forbidden Planet kind of references poltergeist activity. The movies do not cover hauntings very well. That's a really good question, and almost I think it's actually impossible to answer, because there aren't any movies that actually cover documentaries, sure,
right.
But even docu-movies that try to cover phenomena. Now, maybe you could say The Exorcist to some degree may cover possessions as noted in some case files accurately enough. Although it's a fictionalized version of a true case, there are lots of things that happen in that have supposedly happened in many exorcisms. That might be a good example of supernatural phenomenon as opposed to paranormal phenomenon. The thing is that when you investigate the paranormal as a parapsychologist or otherwise, they're pretty boring. I think an accurate representation might be the brief interview with the parapsychologist and the family in Poltergeist, in which he says he followed a car across the floor that took hours to get from one place to the next.
I remember.
That is probably one of the most accurate portrayals of parapsychology in film. And certainly there's lots of case studies in which things have happened that can be movie-like, but they're few and far between and very rare. And many of the historically referenced ghosts and hauntings and poltergeist activity you've seen referenced in movies are usually, at the very least, highly exaggerated.
Right.
And at worst, completely made up. Amityville Horror is probably a total hoax, if any of it was real ever at all. And in many of the movies that come out recently referencing cases by the Warrens in general are at the very least extremely exaggerated, if not completely made up.
Well, I want to ask you this because I don't want to ruin a future job maybe, but what about, because now it seems like every cable channel now has some sort of ghost hunters.
And I've been on a few of those shows. So
I know that's why I don't want to ruin any of your future jobs, but it just seems like a lot of these ghost shows, every single episode, they see something, they hear something, they catch something on tape, and it's like, then other people I go and I don't hear nothing. So it's like, how are they just lucky, or is this another Hollywood?
It's certainly Hollywood.
Yeah.
It is. But the more serious sci-field researchers, paranormal researchers, and parapsychologists, they will certainly tell you that when investigating the paranormal, it's more investigating one place multiple times as opposed to investigating a dozen places one time, as often portrayed in television shows, the ghost hunting shows, for example. And very rarely you can go to a dozen places before you get one place that has activity. You'll encounter people that are faking things, that are there's nothing really. You find natural explanations for it first, or that they're just lonely, or they're trying to get their own TV show themselves,
right?
et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually you get to that one case which might have some low level things, but the more hyperactive things, that's extremely rare. And you might investigate for a long time before you come across something like that. So based on just the statistical probability and decades worth of research done by other investigators, including myself, you can argue that, the Occam's razor tells you that there's definitely something hinky going on in a lot of those shows.
Right. Yeah. And I always thought it was funny because, every show you're like, in every, like even a Bigfoot show, it's like they see something, they hear something. And I'm like, and you have people that live out in the woods and, are around the woods constantly. And they're like, once 40 years ago, I saw something. And I'm like, how are these people? They're either very lucky or the Hollywood just happens to know how to edit very well. Well, okay. So that being said, if it takes sometimes a long time to really get some type of activity as a psychic, and I mean, we all believe that we can connect with the other side. There are spirits out there. As a psychic, how does one, when you're saying what you're saying, how does one believe then that as a psychic you can reach celebrities and historical figures and even loved ones every time you go into your gift?
Well, let's some clarity here. As a psychic entertainer, I'm not psychic. That's why I put the entertainer.
Got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, however, the using aspects of mentalism, hypnosis, and you can kind of have you can actually develop a skill set in which you could tell the sincerity of others. You can look for tells and that sort of thing when doing interviews, and it gives you a better understanding of individuals and people. And I think you certainly, even a layperson can develop connections with paranormal phenomenon, with locations that have high energy activity there,
right,
and things like that. And I think that's that's very I certainly have established what I believe are connections with places I've been to, and I've had certainly psychic experiences, despite the fact I'm not particularly sensitive or psychic. But I think that that's a good point you're making, though. Anyway, I've certainly interviewed many mediums, many psychics over the years. People have making connections with that, and something to keep in mind is that being psychic and sensitive, you still have beliefs, ideas, and biases.
Right.
All right. And whatever you're picking up from your environment or an object or other people, you're filtering that through your beliefs, and that has to be taken into consideration, because you only know what you think you know, if that makes sense.
Right.
So if you're feeling that you're like, do you know it's a ghost? That probably not because the ghost told you, hey, I'm a ghost.
Right.
It's because you believe it's a ghost because of because of popular culture and what you've read and learned, as opposed to what you feel. A lot of psychics have described it as a feeling or awareness more than it is like actual straightforward data they're picking up.
Yeah, and I have to believe that you're an intuitive, because I couldn't believe, being a mentalist or an illusionist, you wouldn't be able to pick up certain feeling signs, because you have to be intuitive or into
Yeah, I think
get into
that's
somebody's
fair.
mind.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
intuitive or empathic, I guess is
yeah,
a good word of
empathic.
putting
Yeah.
it. Um, and I think that's fair. I definitely feel like that sometimes. You know, the I tend to stray away from my instincts, much to my
Really?
personal hindrance,
Huh.
because I want to believe in people being better people, and it's not always
No, no.
worked to
Yeah.
my benefit
Right.
in the past. But
Yeah.
you always got to stay the optimist, I believe. Anyway, so
Well, we try. We try. It's harder these days, but I think we're going through that period. But we'll stay out of that area. But
yeah.
well, you're known as the Seance Authority, and you know we're in the Halloween and like right down to the finish line. So when you say the Seance of Authority, and you're saying I'm not psychic, so how did you learn about seances, and how did you learn to become an authority?
Well, the information on seances is out there. You can go read a book on seances.
Right, there's tons.
And that sort of thing. And that's where I got most of my experience. And of course, I did attend seances hosted by other people who had much more experience than I did. And that's how I learned seances. And I do think there has to be experts and authorities on topics, and I know a lot of people say there's no experts in the paranormal. Well, there should be. The problem with saying there's no experts means there's no oversight. Okay, and that I'm sure you can imagine is a problem when you're trying to say, people will say this is a field of research, right? That we're a community of researchers and investigators, but there's no experts.
Right.
How does that work?
Right.
Because
right.
any field of research has authority figures, that has instructors, mentors, teachers, professors, experts on those topics. You can research to the history and evolution of ideas to have an understanding of where the concept of unicorns come from. Unicorns probably don't exist, but you can be an expert on unicorns by having above average understanding. Expert means you have an above average understanding on something. The authority position I have on seances means I practice seances. I studied the history of it, where it came from, how it evolved, why people believe the things they do about it. That's how I'm able to make that claim of an authority or an expert on seances. Spirit communication has been around for thousands of years.
Right.
Seances, as we know it today, with the big round table and everyone holding hands and the ritual, that's been around for about 200 years, a little bit less than that. Everything we know about seances comes mostly from the Victorian era in history, starting with the Fox sisters and kind of going throughout the 19th century into the early 20th century.
So how have you ever had a seance where you felt like you may have reached a spirit?
Absolutely.
Well, tell me about that, because I've never actually been around a table or in a room where somebody was doing a seance. I've had somebody on my show a couple years ago, and we tried to do it in the studio, but I don't believe we connected anything. But so I was just curious on how do you prepare, and then also what was it like to connect to the spirit for the first time?
Well, most people know seances from once again popular culture. They're used too often as a plot device in movies and TV shows.
Right.
The seance starts, maybe it's an expert or a non-expert in seances, but there's the inevitable part of the seance where something goes wrong, right?
Right.
and that's where the drama unfolds in the movie and shows. But seances are actually one of the safest ways of doing spirit communication. All right. It rarely does something go wrong because you're focused on a specific individual. One of the most important rules of seances is to focus your intention on who you want to communicate with. If you want to talk to the spirit of Edgar Allan Poe or the George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or Marilyn Monroe, or whatever your topic is for that evening, you want to focus on that subject. You have a target object, a photograph of that person, an object that may have been once owned by that individual. These things help focus that energy onto that individual. So you have a very contained, you create a protective circle at the beginning where everyone's intentions are focused. All right. And then you can proceed with a seance and using pendulums or spirit boards or other sorts of, you can even modernize a little bit and add an EV voice recorder in there if you'd like, or video cameras around the perimeter. And then when you close the seance, you basically say goodbye, and you can depart now from at the breaking of the circle from whence you came. Somebody might start off with words like time and space matters not in the state that you currently are in. Please come within our spirit circle, within which you shall remain until the breaking of the circle, and then you should depart from whence you came. Something along those lines.
So was there any how did you hear the spirit? Or was it vocally? Was it just
tapping sounds,
right?
Movement. People will feel a breath on the back of their neck sometimes.
Okay. That'd be cool.
I've actually, in at least one seance, a person complained, or not complained. Well, I guess it was a little bit of a complaint, but they claimed that they were pushed and they actually fell backwards on their chair onto the floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I guess you could argue that's something going wrong, like in the movies or TV shows, but he did not refer to it as a negative experience. In fact, he said it was more like an accident. Like they felt like someone was brushing against him and didn't understand how
hard it was.
Yeah. And we've had objects on the table move around. We've had bells ring and so on and so forth.
So have you ever been not skeptical, but a little more concerned of trying to tap into a certain person's energy? Jack the Ripper, or
Jack the Ripper is exactly the subject I would have mentioned.
Oh, okay.
When I do Jack the Ripper themed seances, I usually try to contact the victim.
Oh, it's probably safer.
As opposed to the Ripper himself, because the Ripper, the problem with that is we don't know who that is. It could have been also multiple murderers theoretically.
Right.
But we definitely know the names of victims, and we can focus on them. And in those cases, the victim is, they want to be recognized. They should be recognized. And the Ripper was someone who should not be recognized. This is a vile, despicable, loathsome human being, a cold-blooded killer. No offense to the lizard people you represent.
Right. Talking about my people.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think that would be one of the biggest fears. It kind of reminds me, remember the movie Ghost, is when Whoopi Goldberg finally has this first encounter of she pretends she's a psychic, and then all of a sudden she actually really is a psychic, and then the door opened to where multiple spirits were coming to her constantly, and they wouldn't leave her alone. So how would one protect themselves during a seance to where this spirit's not going to follow them home, or multiple spirits come in and the door stays open?
Well, that takes part in what they call the patter, the language being used at the very beginning, in which you establish a protective circle. All right. If you ever done a protective sort of trance or protective ritual before a paranormal investigation, some people do that. You would envision yourself with a column of light forming around you and protecting you. For example, these visualizations can be helpful. And then you would basically cause that to spread around the entire table and all the seance guests there that evening. So it's all about the intention of the people and making sure you focus on the individual you're trying to contact. And these sorts of things help enhance your protection against any sort of wayward spirits or entities that you did not invite into your seance for that evening.
I have to say, about 5 or 6 years ago, family, or a family that I used to like. I'm still really close to. It's almost like my second family. They were redoing their home. They had some money, and so they needed a place to stay while their home was being renovated. Well, their friend had bought Marilyn Monroe's old home. And so she says, well, you can rent that out while your guys are. And so I got to go over there. And I have to say, the energy was so not heavy, but it was just, you could feel a presence in that house, because they don't let people, film in there. They don't let people go and do seances or psychics go in there. I just happened to be very fortunate to go in. I got to go in the bedroom and out by the pool and in the back house and stuff. So, have you ever had an opportunity of something that was kind of untapped, where a lot of people haven't been, to maybe feels like a spirit or a presence?
Oh, certainly. At the Booth House in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, we've had experiences. I've had some unusual experiences on a haunted bridge in Maryland called Governor's Bridge.
Governor's Bridge?
That's it. There's been a lot of reports of paranormal phenomenon around Governor's Bridge in Maryland. If you have an opportunity, I highly recommend, if you want to do an outdoor paranormal adventure, Governor's Bridge is definitely the right area for that. It's a metal bridge that's between Maryland and I think, there it is. That's it. Yeah. It is. There's some urban legends associated with that. It is a crybaby bridge, in which a
crybaby bridge.
It is a crybaby bridge. Yep. In which you hear the wailing of a baby or child at midnight if you honk your horn 3 times. There's also the legend of the Goat Man, which is if you're a cryptid follower, that's the Goat Man is supposed to haunt that area as well.
Wow. See, that would be, for me, I get excited about that stuff, but I'm sure a lot of people would probably get pretty freaked out about it. But yeah. Well, I have a couple questions in the chat room, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
All right. So, Amisha, have you ever connected with a malicious force?
There have been occasions in which people thought that there was a unpleasant entity present in the environment we were in at a haunted location or two. We've investigated locations where of murders and where violent crimes had occurred. And you can feel that oppressive force. It's somehow, when someone doesn't want you to be there. It's like a feeling that overwhelms you, and that like you're being stared at all the time by something you can't see. And I've definitely been on investigations where people have claimed to have been injured by something invisible, a scratch or a bite or a suffocating force.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Nothing too dangerous, but some definitely mild injuries, and definitely traumatic from an emotional sense.
I would say so. I've never had a bad experience, but I have, when I was a child, I've seen a ghost, but I think he was just an old spirit, an old man that had built the house back in the early 1900s. And I think he just probably didn't even know he was dead. Maybe, I don't know. He just liked the house. But I have felt a presence where I was very uncomfortable. I wasn't scared, but where you get that, like, you feel like somebody's watching you, and you're like, this feels just too heavy for me. So I think I'm going to leave. But I've never ran into anything of like that. All right. So Robert says, are virtual seances possible through platforms like Zoom? And if it is, how would that work?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I was actually developing Zoom seances. Now,
oh wow,
people have attempted radio seances before. In fact, the very first virtual seance I'd ever done was with real video, which was terrible. It was terrible quality. It was a fun seance, but it was a terrible quality. I think it was 150 pixel resolution. live stream from Eastern State Penitentiary about 12 years ago, actually. And I'd be interested in going back there again and trying it with modern technology and doing that again. But yes, you can do a virtual seance. You just have to adapt the that for the virtual environment. The spirits and ghosts and the paranormal, the supernatural, it doesn't have the same sort of limitations that us 3D or 4D individuals have. Right. They can be a little bit more flexible in that regard. What's like the words I said earlier, time and space matters not. You can have a spirit that can seemingly interact with multiple people at the same time across hundreds or even thousands of miles virtually. What you do is you just customize the protection circle to be more individualistic, in which you're saying in the seat that you are at home, close your eyes, relax, and imagine a circle of light forming around your chair, around your feet, forming a column, going up and around you and protecting you. And there's your protection circle. Instead of being around the whole table, it's around the individual in their own location.
That would be cool. And do you have people that want to do this on Halloween?
I should have scheduled that, because I usually get busy on Halloween. This Halloween night, I don't have anything scheduled.
Wow.
I should do that, huh? Yeah.
I was going to say that would have been an awesome.
Contact me if anyone's interested in doing a Halloween seance. Maybe I'll put one together for you.
Yeah, go to, was it Magic and Murder? Or is there another website?
I would go to ghosttech.com, actually.
Ghosttech.com. All right, we'll put that on. Make sure we put that on in the chat. And also, and Ruby said, if no one shows fear, a dark, naughty spirit cannot cause harm. So just don't be scared. Yeah, right. I'm sure if something taps you on the shoulder and you turn around, nothing's there, it might put a little fright into you.
Well, the last known ghost that and even this is debatable because it's so long ago, it was the Bell Witch ghost of Adams County, Tennessee. That's the one we know may have killed someone, or at least claimed it. Killed someone. But there's ghosts, like in movies and TV shows, to the best of our knowledge, do not happen like that. There's not a murder ghost. We would probably have proven the existence of ghosts by now if there were places that killed you, like a Roach Motel, where you check in, you can't check out.
Right.
There would have been lots of evidence by this point. I mean, there's rumors of places in Germany and Japan and other locations that have the activity is so dangerous that you put your life at risk. But for the most part, your only risk is like tripping in a haunted prison, and or something like that. Right. More than you being pushed or torn apart by an unseen spirit. Other more malicious things are rare still. It's like you just go down a list of things, like you can go to dozens or even hundreds of places and still not encounter something that's truly a danger to yourself. Most people are more upset about superstition than reality, or the pop culture, how that affects our thought process on many different things. One of my favorite topics, of course, is the Ouija board.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up. What do you think about that?
Everyone should go out and get and use all the time.
What's funny is some psychics are like, unless you know how to use it, don't touch it.
Yep.
So why do you want people to use it? What?
Because it's overrated. It's just another tool. I always ask people, so the people will say to me, I had a bad experience when I was a kid with a Ouija board, and my question to them is this: would that experience have happened if you had used something else? Are you sure it was a Ouija board? You can't know. Like maybe if you had done it with a pendulum or an EMF detector or whatever.
Right.
I've had people tell me that they have been on investigations where they've done EVP and video recording and used EMF detectors, and they've gotten bitten or scratched or injured on their investigation, and they'll still go out on another investigation. But a planchette moves across the Ouija board, or their curtains flutter, or they hear a tap on the window while using a Ouija board, they stop using it immediately and never do it again. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
What's the Ouija board is spooky not because it's an evil portal to hell, but because movies and TV shows tell us it is. The Ouija board was invented in Baltimore City in the late 1900s and was a board game for 80 years. Basically, it was a at-home version of a date night game in which you would spook your partner to cuddle up with you because the spirits are talking to you. Ooh, get closer, protect me from the ghosts.
Right. Yeah, I remember as a kid using it. Me and my, not necessarily my parents, but my siblings, we would use it. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, but I want to ask this because I had the opportunity several years ago of interviewing the amazing Crescent. Mm-hmm. Who's one of the most well-known mentalists out there. Yes. And you're a mentalist and hypnotist. So I'm curious. Is a mentalist kind of tricking the mind, or how does it work? Because it's amazing when you see this happen right in front of your face, and you're like, how? There's no way that some of this stuff could.
Let's try an experiment. All right.
Okay.
Try to put your hand up as close as like this. See where my fingers are right now? Try to get your hand up that close. Let's see if bring your hand down so I can just see the fingers like that. Perfect. Put your thumb in, and we're not going to count the thumb.
Okay.
All right. Straighten your hand up a little bit. It's a little crooked. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. That's it. I know it's a little awkward for now.
Right.
Now, think of a finger. Think of one of your fingers.
Okay.
All right, are you thinking of a finger?
I am.
I think you're thinking of either your ring finger or your pointing finger. I'm not 100%. Yeah, it's your ring fingers. That's it, right? Yeah, it's your ring finger. There you go.
Yeah. So
how did I?
Yeah, I was going to say, how would you even guess? Because you had 25%. Or 40.
It's not a percentage thing. It's definitely everyone has tells. It was difficult with you because I couldn't see your eyes. You were blocking your face.
Yeah,
completely.
it was hard to reach.
Yeah. It's just your camera setup is difficult for that experiment. But yes, there's little tells that happen. Your facial expressions, raising eyebrows, your eyes follow where you're going. Also, electrical signals are sent to the muscles in that finger just by thinking about it, which causes you to slightly vibrate or wiggle the fingers.
Oh, really?
That's correct. It's very subtle and hard to pick up on, and because you're pinching your arm on your monitor top,
right?
It was also cutting off some nerve connection there.
Yeah, I was losing.
Which made it a little harder than usual. That's why I couldn't figure out if it was the pointing finger or the ring finger. There's also other factors in there as well. But what mentalism does, it combines mostly visual and audio cues. You look for changes in facial expressions, muscles, things like that. And also you can tell, the more you talk to someone, you can tell what are called tremolo differences or differentials, which is voice pattern changes as well. All these things contribute to, you seem like a very polite person, so that's why I knew you wanted to pick the middle finger.
Well, at first I thought about it, then I said, no, I'll do the ring.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny. I watched a segment you did where two people both closed their eyes. You touched one person on the shoulder and the other person felt the touch at the same spot. How in the hell? Well, you don't want to give it away, but I mean, that's pretty fascinating.
Yes, I can do that with individuals as well. I don't need two people where I can make them lift their arms up and hands and things like that. There's you combine different techniques to duplicate the phenomenon of psychic activity. So it takes a lot of practice.
I'm
a lot
sure.
of practice and confidence. Yes. So
I mean, how long did that take you to get to where you felt comfortable knowing
for that particular technique? It took about a year.
Oh, wow.
A year of constant practicing with people and that sort of thing before I got up to the level in which it would look convincing. And then facial readings and muscle readings and stuff like that takes years on itself.
Have you ever actually even felt like a telepathy? Because somebody was bringing up telepathy, like where you actually could almost visualize what they were thinking.
I can pick up on empathetic cues in which I can detect sincerity. It's very hard to pick up lies because some people are good liars.
Oh, yeah,
but
that's true.
Insincerity, unless you're dealing with a sociopath, you can pick up on sincerity. Even sociopaths become obvious to someone with this sort of training more so than most people like to throw that word around like that person's a sociopath because they didn't give me a quarter when I asked for it, for a shot, or whatever. But a sociopath is charming. You would like them.
Right.
You would not. They don't look like hunchback freaks. They're
right.
they are charming and endearing, and they have gravitas. People love them when they meet them. They win you over. You're probably really good friends with the sociopath because they're or at least a habit at some point in your life and never realized it.
Well, that's what a lot of this, like serial killers, like Ted Bundy and certain people actually they were so charming. That's how they got away with most of the crimes and got their victims.
you would not say that person's creepy. You would say that is a nice guy.
Right. That's what. Wait a minute. That's what they say about me. Uh-oh. Well, okay. So, like I said, Halloween's coming. We're almost out of time. If somebody wanted to do a seance at home, I mean, and can't connect to you, how would one go about it by themselves, or even with friends that don't have a Ouija board?
Sure. Just you can use pendulums instead of a Ouija board. You could just draw a pendulum board with yes and no on it with a circle on a piece of paper, and there's your communication tool. You would get your friends together. You would a round table is always preferred. It's the classic, right? Mm-hmm. And you would light a candle, and you would say that we gather here to communicate with this specific individual. They have a specific name. Never say anyone or whatever or anything. Definitely not anything. You would tell everyone to close their eyes, focus on a protective circle around them. And then you would say, within our circle, you shall remain in peace and safety. All right. At the breaking of the circle, you shall depart from whence you came. Once again, in peace and safety. And you can say a prayer if you'd like, depending on your faith and belief. And as long as you obey those simple rules, you should be fine. It's always better to have a experienced seance mentor, of course. But those are the basics, and also make sure everyone's intention is on the same playing field. Everyone has the same intention for wanting to be there.
Nice. And I actually interviewed somebody one time about the intention, and it was actually with slot machines, and they did an experiment of winning slots, and they said when everybody went in with the intention of winning, they said the ratio was way higher than if you went in not. So I try it, and it doesn't work as well for me, but maybe there's that small doubt in there. Well, so tell everybody where to find you, and
for the paranormal, just go to ghosttech.com. For everything else, just go to vincewilsonmagic.com. But if you're interested in contacting me about the paranormal psychic phenomenon and spooky things, and ghosttech.com is definitely the best place to go. There's also Be More Paranormal and parapsychologylab.com, where I'm currently the executive director of the American Institute of Parapsychology.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on everything you're doing, and thanks for explaining all the fun information as we get ready to jump in this weekend for the Halloween. And are you doing anything?
Happy Halloween, everyone!
Yeah, happy Halloween, everybody. And Vince said, he's free on Halloween, so if you guys want to do a Zoom seance, get a group of people together and give him a call. So, all right. Well, thank you, Vince, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, and thank you, everybody, for joining us right here on Truth Be Told. As always, thank you for participating in the chat room, and also, thanks for supporting us every week. We really appreciate you. And as always, don't forget to watch Robert Hensley on the Minuteman Report on Monday, Bonnie Burkett on Wednesday for the Truth Be Told Transformation, and me every Friday right here at 3 o'clock. We'll see you next Friday. Bye-bye. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.